So as Jamie said, we're looking at the speaking today and the part 2, okay, which can be a bit tricky sometimes. So we're going to look at planning so that you get to speak for that full 2 minutes, and we're going to look at some vocabulary that we can use in certain circumstances, how to get a good order to your speaking. So remember, it's not just fluency, it's fluency and coherence that you're assessed on. So you do need to give well-structured answers as well as fluent answers, okay? And hey, Arakan, how you doing? And the specific topic we're going to look at today is describing a place, okay? So let's just have, oh, Nathan as well. A quick overview of what we're looking at here. So the examiner gives you a topic that looks just like this, describe something, and then there's a few bullet points for you to use as guidelines. And then you have some preparation, and then you speak, okay? So let's have a look at some statements about the part 2 and see if they're true or false, okay? So just put this up in the chat. If you can add attendees so that you're writing to everybody, it all makes a bit more sense when everybody can see what's being written, okay? So the first one, topic is related to a personal experience. Is that okay? Yeah, very much so. Always something about yourself, always, okay? And how about the next one? 2 minutes to prepare, Michaela? Nope, no, absolutely not. 1 minute to prepare, very tightly kept to by the examiner, so nothing wrong with that, okay? Just 1 minute, okay? It's 1 hour, Erin, the whole thing. 45 minutes on the lesson, about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So you need to speak for 2 minutes. Yeah, okay, that's absolutely true. And you should go to the end. You should be speaking until the examiner puts their hand up and stops you, okay? That would be the best to do, you know, but as close to 2 minutes as possible. Okay, what about the next one? Okay, absolutely false. You know, you have your 1 minute to prepare. You can also make some notes. You cannot take anything into the speaking test with you except your ID, but the examiner will give you a piece of paper and a pencil, and they will take it away again at the end, okay? So you won't be able to take it with you, okay? You must cover all of the bullet points on the question. Oh, we've got a bit of a, yes, Sky, Michaela, you're right there. You do not need to answer all the bullet points, okay? I think this is really, really important for everyone to know. It's not a task in that sense. It's not a presentation. You don't have to complete it. Those bullet points are there to help you, okay? But you don't necessarily need to follow them. You don't need to complete them. And to be honest, if all you do is answer the bullet points, you're probably going to finish after about 30 seconds, okay? So, you know, that's not really very helpful. So you do not need to use the bullet points. They're just a guide, okay? That is definitely false. Okay, you need to finish the story before the 2 minutes is up. Yeah, okay, very good. Not necessarily, as Mustafa said. Again, like I said, it's not a presentation. You don't have to come to an end point. It's perfectly fine if you are still in the middle of what you want to say when the examiner stops you. So always go for more detail rather than less detail, because you don't have to get to any particular point by the end of it. Okay, again, that's very important. Yeah, you will have your notes with you all the time that you speak. It's perfectly fine to refer to them. I think that's natural. That's why they give you the 2 minutes. Okay, all right. Okay, you need to tell a funny story. And yes, you will get the question paper. You will get this task to look at, as well as the paper to write on and the pencil. Yeah, nope, you do not need to tell a funny story. You just have to speak, good English. That's all they're assessing you on. Okay. We'll go to planning in a minute, Nayab, so that hopefully will help you with that. Okay, there's a quick follow-up question at the end. We will lose him in laughing. That's a good point, Harrietta. Yeah, maybe don't want him to laugh too much. Yes, there's always one quick follow-up question related to what you've said. Do you need to give a long answer to the follow-up question? No. Okay, absolutely. Yeah. That you just answer very quickly, 1 sentence. Okay, it's just to kind of close the part 2. So don't give a long answer to the follow-up question. Okay, part 2 and part 3 are related. Yes, they're always on the same topic. Part 2 is personal, and then you will move on to abstract questions in the part 3. But they will be related, okay? And before you start planning, in that minute of preparation that you have, you should spend a good long time thinking about what you want to talk about. Yes, no, not helpful at all. You need to have your idea ready to go, and you're going to need that minute to, to make all of those notes, which we will look at until the, we'll look at in a moment, okay? There's no factually correct, incorrect. This is a personal story. The examiner doesn't know anything about it, so what doesn't really matter the content. What matters is that the language you use and that it's coherent and easy to follow, okay? So let's look a little bit more about planning. So one of the most important things to do with the part 2 is to look at as many different examples as possible before you do your test, okay? So that you've tried to cover as many options that there could be. And one of the things about the part 2 is, although there are many different subjects you could be asked, they do tend to be related to certain areas. So places is very common, people, describing a person, describing an object, okay? Yeah, nobody knows if you're lying or not, so it doesn't matter, okay? So, for example, if it's a place, it could be a tourist place in your country, a beautiful place in your country, your favorite place you've ever been, lots of different things, but actually the answer is the same. You are talking about a place and you're using the kind of vocabulary, really good vocabulary to describe places, okay? But do, prepare by looking at as many topics as possible. And you don't have to, just make some notes on these different topics so that you've got in your head something that you would say, some example that you could use, and then you're ready to go when you get that card and you've got that full minute to prepare, okay? So let's have a look at some of the vocabulary now. So as I said, place is very, very common. Could be natural, could be cities. So we'll look at both of those. If you look at that picture there, what kind of adjectives or what kind of words could you use, as best vocabulary you can think of? Very good, yeah, Michaela. Breathtaking, stunning, ski resort, very dangerous ski resort, I think, but yeah, maybe mesmerizing, very nice, ravishing, delightful, Beatrice, rather than delightable, pristine nature, very nice, excellent, okay. So some really good vocabulary there. Okay. So yeah, clear cut. Exquisite views, very nice. 1+, what your name is. Okay, good. Adventurous, God's nature, very nice. Okay, so get that really high level vocabulary. This is something that you can do in preparation, you know, just in case you get a place. All right. Okay, well, we'll come to that in a minute. But both grammar and vocabulary are equally important, Pachu. You're assessed in 4 areas, and it's an average of the 4 areas. So you can't say one is more important than another. Okay, how about this one? So we've got in a very traditional, historic city there. Romantic, eye-catching, very nice. Yeah, historic. Okay, yeah, possibly royal. Very nice. Picturesque. Very nice, guys. Yeah. Okay. Don't know if it's what captivating. Very nice. We've got some 1+ is doing very well there. Okay, good. Authentic. I like that. I'm not sure about the blizzard. Maybe in the first one. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Very different type of city. Yeah, you could say it was an ancient city. Certainly a very historic. Okay, sophisticated. I like that. Photogenic. Very nice, guys. We've got some great words coming up here. A metropolis. Okay, yeah, like a mirror. Stunning. Okay, very good. Yeah, good example of urbanization. Excellent. Okay. And the last one. Okay, very nice, Tucker. Rural. Serene, peaceful. Okay, very good. Yeah. Garden of Eden, very nice, Lubomir. That's wonderful. It's like a garden. Refreshing, balmy. Sundaria, very, very nice vocabulary. Excellent. Heavenly, Tran. Okay, so, you know, get that really high level vocabulary. Remember, to get a 7 in vocabulary, you need to use less common words. So that is advanced vocabulary. Okay. And that's the kind of thing you might be using if you were describing a place, okay? So a lot of people are talking about, you know, what if I run out? What if I freeze? What if I get stuck? Oh, I like lush green, very nice. So what we're gonna do is look at how you can plan to, you know, minimize the risk of freezing or running out, okay? So we're back to our example. All right. So this is some of the reasons why you should plan your talk. It will give you that well-structured answer, which is important for fluency and coherence. It also helps you avoid going back and repeating the same thing. That's quite a big mistake. Sometimes people then they start saying the same thing, the same content, which means it's the same vocabulary and the same grammar. So you're not showing that variety that the examiner is really wanting to see in this 2 minutes. Okay. So let's have a look at planning your short talk, okay? So it's not going to be enough just to do a description, okay? That's going to be great, but you do run out of adjectives quite quickly. It's not going to get you 2 minutes. So you need to use some things like context, background, you know, set the scene, as we say. You know, where, when, who were you with, what situation were you in at that time, okay? And then that's going to give you a good basis, a good introduction that will get you maybe hopefully sort of 20 seconds in before you really start talking about it, okay? So let's have a look at what we could do about that. So we're starting with that same picture that we had at the beginning. So we had breathtaking, majestic, spectacular. But what kind of other information could you talk about related to that? Okay, so yeah, but not, well, what could you do rather than, okay, so like Sky's saying, the situation, maybe there's a sports camp. You could talk about the weather, yeah, you could talk about the activities. Okay, so we're not just describing it. We are, oh, I like that though. Clouds kissing the mountain. That's very sweet. Yeah, hiking, the trip, the location. Yeah, so go more broad, basically. You've got to think broad, not just always going forward. Okay, very good. Experiencing nature. Maybe it was a vacation. Maybe it was photography. Okay, so lots of background, lots of context. Escape from city life, Sian, that's very nice. Okay. Okay, we've got a bit more information here. So anything else you could add to this? Okay. So we got some kayaking. What else might you want to say about that? Okay, maybe it was a summer camp, so you're talking about the camp. Okay, talking about some other activities. Okay. All right, you're still giving quite a lot of adjectives, but we're trying to think of some of the other things that we could talk about here. Yeah, like different kinds of water sports, maybe you did, outdoor activities. Okay, yeah, good. Okay, and who you went with. There's a horror movie backdrop. Yeah, wait until you see the last picture here. Okay, so what more information can we add here? Okay, very good, Harshad. Maybe you went with your family, a bit of quality family time. Okay, so adventure, friendship, yeah, okay, very good, fun time. So who you went with, you could talk about who these people are. Honeymoon, Jamie? Interesting number there for a honeymoon, but you never know. Yeah, so all of that, chilling out, hanging out with friends, all of those kinds of things. We were alone at sea. Sounds like a good story. A bachelor party, maybe a bit more like a bachelor party than a honeymoon. Okay, and then we've got a little bit more information about what happened. Love and war. Okay, yeah, good. So we're getting into a dangerous situation. Got attacked. Yeah, grizzly bear. Okay, good. So, you know, we're going into, we're going into all of this kind of detail. You smelt the smoked salmon, yeah. That you're going to need to give in order to get that the 2 minutes out. Yes, an angry bear. Pretend to be dead. Yes, I think that's what you need to do. Good. Okay, so think of everything you could possibly say about this situation, rather than just either describing something or, you know, going through those bullet points. Both of those things are going to mean that you're going to run out of things to say, probably less than a minute. Okay, so just, you know, as much detail as possible. Okay, apparently it doesn't work playing dead. I don't know. I've never been in that situation. Okay, so let's look at how you plan. So there's two things that you can do, and we're going to look at both of them. So one of them is a mind map. Okay, this is very good because you've got a visual there, and the visual will tend to, you know, get your brain working a little bit more actively. It's also very easy to see the different categories that you're going to talk about. And then quite simply, you know, in terms of the structure, you go through each heading one by one. You're not going to repeat, and you're not going. It's going to be coherent, okay? And you're going to get that you know, variety of vocabulary that you need. So I would definitely recommend using a mind map during that 1 minute, okay? So then we need to come up with some headings for our different categories. So any ideas what kind of headings could you have in your mind map? Okay, very good. Samira, where? Yeah, just, you know, draw it very quickly, lines. You don't have to make it beautiful, but just, okay, where, yes, who, with, why, okay? So it's really good to use these kind of question words, okay? Like where, so I'm just going to move a picture of me. Yeah, who, why. So, you know, that really helps you. It's very quick. And to be honest, you know, whatever the topic is that you're talking about, it will, you know, you'll be able to use more or less the same when, where, who, with. That's pretty much always going to work in terms of background and context. Yeah. So very quick. Yeah, the 5 W's and the 1 H. I mean, that's a good way of remembering it very, very quickly. Yeah. Probably you'd need a couple more as well. Okay. So let's do a little bit of matching. So then under each of your headings, then just a few keywords that are going to be prompts for you to be able to speak about these things for a long period of time. Okay. So we're going to do a very quick matching. So where for number 1, which answer would be where? Yeah. Okay. A. And then when, okay, very good, would be D. And then who, okay, very good, 2 close friends. And then why, okay, why, yeah. Yeah, so because they love nature and the outdoors. Okay, so that's the reason why they chose this place. Okay, oops, going a bit ahead. What did they do? What's the what? Yes, okay, so F, the activities we're talking about there. So you're talking about all the different activities they did. Weather. Okay, very good, surprisingly warm and sunny. Food. Okay, good, the local cuisine. And would you recommend it? Yes, okay, perfect destination for nature lovers. And you've already got some quite nice vocabulary that you've got there. Okay, so, you know, hopefully about, well, we got 8 headings there, few words under those 8 headings. That should be enough to keep you going for the 2 minutes, okay? And anything that is going to trigger, you know, a strong memory and that you're going to be able to talk about in great detail. Okay. All right. Okay. What should we mean there? So let's say actually the question was a restaurant that I visited recently. What kind of question words could you use in this case, or what kind of headings could you use? Yeah, again, so a lot of it we've got is the same, but then some things maybe a little bit different. So, you know, we've got the type of food. In this case, you could talk about atmosphere. Yeah, yes, ambience, exactly. Sorry, that went up very quickly, so I didn't see who it was. And Sveta as well, so the ambience you could talk about. You know, you can always talk about how good or bad an experience or, you know, an object or an occasion was. You could talk about the service, yeah, and this guy's written recommend, so you could also say whether you would recommend it. Okay, yes, staff, Joel, talk about the staff, talk about the service. You know, there's different things that you can add. There's no right or wrong answer here, but, you know, try and get a good range of headings. And then a couple of key words under each of those headings. Yeah, what was the special, the menu of the day, something like that. Okay, so you can see that this is a lot more than what you've got on those 3 bullet points. Okay, very nice. Yeah, Yasman, scrumptious food, I like that. Yes, Srinath, amenities, that's something else. Decor, you know, there's a good range of things that you can talk about, okay? And a good exercise, and something that I do a lot with my students, is, you know, how long can you talk about each of those headings? So for example, if you could talk for 20 minutes on, sorry, not 20 minutes, 20 seconds on each of those headings, you would be over the 2 minutes. Maybe you could try and talk for 30 seconds on each of the headings, okay? And, you know, remember, you don't have to finish the presentation. You don't have to cover anything in particular. So it doesn't matter if you're only halfway through what you want to say. So the more detail, the better. Okay, so a really good advice is plan using the mind map and then see how long can you talk on each specific heading without repeating yourself, though. Very important. There's no point continuing if you're actually repeating yourself. Okay. Good. Yeah. Harsh, mouth-watering food, soft music, all good expressions to use about the food and the ambience. Okay. Yeah, so detail, 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 really, really important. And then we've got our structure there, so we can talk about each of those headings one after the other. But then we also want to use linking phrases to join them. Another thing some people do is they like ask themselves the question and then answer it. So you can say something like, so where was it? Well, this was, you know, downtown, blah, 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 blah. So you can actually quite nicely structure your own answer by asking yourself the questions and then answering them. Okay. So that's one option, a mind map. Okay, very quick, very visual. You get your key points down there. The other thing that you could do is a narrative. So basically you are telling a story rather than giving a series of facts. So it'd be slightly different headings, but it does work very nicely, and it does allow you to use some very precise, very interesting vocabulary while you're going through. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to be funny, doesn't have to be exciting. You don't have to make the examiner, you know, roll on the floor laughing. You just got to have good language, good structure. Okay. So if this was our narrative, this is what we're going to look at. What could we, the uninvited guest, yeah. As much detail as possible, Bo Young, as much detail as possible, then you won't run out. So what title could you give this story? Imagine that this was something you were going to maybe write about rather than speak. So what would be a good title for the narrative? We've got Sarosh has got the uninvited guest. I think that's quite nice. Yeah. Man versus wild, Mohan. I like that. Adventure gone wrong. That's brilliant. An exciting getaway. Okay. I am traveler. Well, I like that. Embracing your fears. Very nice. That's very good. A glimpse into mountain life. Beauty and the Beast. Okay, good. Into the wild. Okay, very nice. Yeah, man versus the wild. Wolf, not a wolf. Fishing, memorable trip, travel blog. Yeah, I'm not sure where's Modi coming from. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from. Winnie the Pooh in real life. I love it, Tolgadar. That's true. Oh, I missed my exam. That's nice. Okay, good. At the door of death. Okay, we've got some great language coming out, yeah? Please bear with me. Oh, very good. Okay, so, you know, think of it that way. Think of it, you know, a fun title, and then, you know, tell that story. Okay, I got it. And then you tell that story, yeah? And it is like you were telling your friends what happened, you know, and that's in some ways can help you be less nervous if you imagine you were just telling a friend that, you know, something that had happened to you, okay? All right, so in terms of a narrative, we're still going to have a structure. It's still very important to structure it, but it's going to be quite different to what we looked at before. So we're going to have 5 different categories. So yes, Subramia, you're right. So the first one is going to be the introduction. Okay. It's not formal. This is the speaking. So you don't speak formally. In fact, they are looking for informal language, phrasal verbs, colloquial expressions. So you don't need to be formal now. Okay, good. The past, then. Okay, very good. The description. Okay. Well, we're going for the opinion, how you felt about it, and then finally the future. Okay, but you know, you have some leeway here, you have some flexibility, but still thinking about it in terms of a structure that you're going to follow. So your introduction is what and why. Why have you chosen this to talk about? Okay. Then you want to set the scene, as we said before. So give some context, give some background. So you're not jumping straight into the description. That's, again, is going to make it hard for you to last the 2 minutes. Okay. Then, you know, the key piece of information, what happened. Then obviously, then you can talk about how you felt about it. Maybe it was a good experience. Maybe you liked the bear. Maybe you didn't like the bear. You have to, you know, talk about that. And then, you know, would you go back? Would you do it again? Would you like to see the bear again? So, you know, you've still got a very nice structure there to follow. Okay. So, let's have a look at we're going to go through a kind of mock answer for this. Okay. So a beautiful place I visited is Alaska. Very short, not really very much going on there. Okay. So what else could you say? How could you introduce what you're talking about and why with a bit more language there? Okay. Yeah, okay, just give me some sentences. How are you going to expand a beautiful place I visited? In the speaking, you're not really using academic language, Shubhamir. You're really just, it's a speaking test. They want you to speak like, you know, normally. So that would be informally, okay? Okay, yeah, majestic trip to Antarctica with my family to go skiing. Very nice. That's excellent. Yeah, okay. Uh-huh. Okay, I would like to talk about a beautiful destination, which was, I said, okay, very nice, great. We've got some great things. And my first ever solo trip to Alaska, very nice, Michaela. My friend took me to a breathtaking resort for our anniversary in Alaska, brilliant. Okay, extraordinary scenery, good. So yeah, you know, lots and lots of information. Don't just say, this was where it was, okay? So we've got an
Hello guys, can you hear me okay? Yep, I'm here. I think Annelie's connection may have frozen, so I'm sure she'll be back. While we're waiting for her to rejoin the webinar, maybe I can discuss some of your questions you've been asking, okay? So feel free to ask some questions in the chat. I also have some of your questions here in the Q&A. So you got frightened because do I look so scary? Unknown. Oh dear. Don't worry. Don't worry. Annelie will be back soon. Okay. So let's take a look at some of your questions here. Oh, hello, Max. Nice to see you, Win. And Hannah, your exam is tomorrow. Do I have any tips? I would say, yeah, try to relax, get a good night's sleep tonight. Don't stay up too late. And yeah, welcome back, Annelie.
I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened there.
It's okay. It's okay. We've been discussing some of the questions students.
Okay, all right.
They were worried. I think one student said they were frightened. I think
the bear came. It became real life. Thank you very much, Phoenix, for welcoming me back. I don't know what, my internet just sort of died very quickly there. Okay, shall I just carry on? Are you okay? In the middle
Sure,
of
sure. We'll have time in a moment
the bear took
discuss your questions. So yeah, we can go back to the presentation for now, I think. Okay,
Okay, good.
great. Cheers, Annelie.
Okay, cheers. Yeah. So, yeah, a holiday which was exceptionally beautiful. Okay, so this is Kenai Fort. Okay, very good. Yeah, which is located. So we got our complex sentences straight away. Very, very important to get, 6 and 7 and above, mainly, for complex sentences. Yeah. Okay. And then explain why. So again, you're giving a bit more information. This is not asked for, but it's something that will help you. Okay. Which is located. Yeah. So I chose to talk about this place. How could we finish that sentence? Yeah. Because what would be the reason? Okay. You could also say, that's because, but we've got because. How would you continue? Or for the reason that, because it's unforgettable, Maria. Yeah. Okay. Most amazing experiences of my life. I was mesmerized by its beauty, Sonia. That's lovely. Okay. Unforgettable moments. Great stuff, guys. Very, very good. Okay. Oh, a place that's close to my heart. Heaven on earth. Okay. We've got great language, guys. Okay. What about, so we talked a little bit before about a restaurant I visited recently. How could you introduce that subject? What could you say? Oh, irreplaceable natural beauty. Got some very nice things coming up here. So what about the restaurant? What could you say about the restaurant? Yeah, okay, a fancy place I visited recently. Very good, yeah. Okay. A place with a good reputation. Yeah. Okay. Very nice. A cozy place. And remember, always you would say why you chose this place. Okay. Good place for foodies. That's very nice. Authentic Indian restaurant. Trying something new. Okay. Really good, guys. So lots and lots of detail, lots of background. Okay. Then we go into the situation. Okay. So we've got here first. So immediately we're signposting where we are in the talk. So let me give you a bit more. What could we put in there? It could be some more details, a bit more, or information, or okay. Rogers has got the one background is kind of what we're looking at here, but fine to say information and insight. That would be good. Yeah. Okay. So at the time, so you're setting the scene. What were you doing at the time? Yeah. So what's missing here? Yeah. Okay. So remember talking about a situation in the past. So we need to be using the past continuous. I was working, I was living, I was studying, something like that. Okay. And about the next one, I'd been working there for 5 years. Yeah. Okay. So again, we got now nice variety of tenses already. We've got the past continuous. We've got the past perfect continuous. So, very impressive for the examiner. Okay. And then again, we're moving on to a different tense. So his friends had already left or had just left. Okay, so again, now past perfect simple, whole range, the school where we were working. Okay, so good complex sentence, different tenses, different structures. That's the kind of thing that you're looking for. Good. Okay, so remember with the grammar, it's not just accuracy, but it's also range, which means different types of structures, different types of tenses in order to get a good score. Okay. So again, we're signposting. So that was the situation. And so we decided, okay, to celebrate together. Okay. So that's the situation. Then you go into the kind of action. So this is our next picture. Okay. So we can say anyway. So again, it's not formal. It's very informal. That's a good informal linking phrase to use to when you finished with the introduction and now you're going into the real core of the subject. Okay. And now you're talking about the events, the actions. So now we switch to past simple. Okay. So we could see what all the fuss is about. Again, informal English, you know, this is colloquial phrases here. It's not formal English. Yeah. Okay. So what are we missing here? Okay, good. We went kayaking. So we've got kayaking, we've got glacier, camping by the shore, and what could we put in there? Okay, yeah, we saw, yeah, we spotted. Food wasn't hygienic. Many different types of animals, okay, which we've then listed. So again, encountered is nice. You know, we've got eagles, seals, puffins, so really good vocabulary, very precise, very high level, okay. And then we're moving on to the next bit. So again, time phrase to signpost what's going on here. So just before we left, a bear what? Okay, it barged into, there's always some great expressions here. Yeah, I like barged. It came into our camp, wandered. So I was like, very nice. Kate crashed our camp. That's really good. Rampaged into our camp. Okay, really good vocabulary got there. Okay, approached us. Very nice. Yeah. And okay, good. I had to chase him away by throwing stones. Okay, so list of actions that are in the, you know, the right time order. So we're just using past simple all through that. Okay. So then we're going to talk about how we felt about the experience. So in my, okay, good. Yeah, in my opinion. So Alaska is the perfect holiday for that. Yeah, actually that would work very well. Or destination, yeah, or the perfect package, that's quite good as well. It's perfect spot, yeah. Okay. It has nice adjective we can throw in here. Okay, very nice. Diverse, gorgeous, abundant. Okay, we've got unspoilt nature. Okay. Or breathtaking nature, yeah, lots of different, okay, good, yeah, activities to do, and okay, good, the chance to encounter animals in the wild. Okay, very good. So that's how we felt about it, and then we can talk about the last. So this is our last point. So how are we going to introduce that? Okay, yeah, finally, in conclusions, more something you would write than say, yeah. So you really want different kinds of linking phrases usually, yeah. So finally, so yeah, in the end, yeah, that would be the last part. So with, okay, but regards, I think would be a bit better, yeah. Remember, try and, you know, make a distinction between the kinds of linking phrases you would use in your writing and the ones you would use in your speaking. So things like, you know, in conclusion, we don't really want to use. We want to keep it informal. Okay. All in all, though, that's very nice. Yeah, I'd love to go back there. Okay, I'd like to go back there. Okay, good. As, yeah, or since. So again, giving the reason. Okay, I only explored. Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, got to know, enjoyed. We put experienced. Very good. Yo-yo. Discovered. Also fine. Okay, a very small part of it. Okay. So that's the narrative. So we got the mind map, we got the narrative, two different ways of doing it, both equally good, both giving you lots of detail to talk about. Okay. Always good practice, record yourself, listen back, think about what you could do differently. But do practice making the notes, find as many different examples of part twos as you can. Make your notes, take a minute to do it, time yourself, because that's all you have in the exam, and see how much detail you can get there. Okay, so there we go. Oh, you're muted, Jamie.
Hi there, Annelie. Can you hear me just now?
Yeah,
I'm back.
absolutely.
Excellent. Well, yeah, a big thank you. Thank you very much for presenting there, Annelie. Thanks, and
Thank you.
for battling through the technical issues as well. So well
Apologies
done.
for the absence.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. I hope you found that helpful, everyone. And thank you for your answers, your suggestions, all the different vocabulary that you suggested. There are some excellent ideas there. So well done. We have a number of your questions to get through in the Q&A. If you do have any additional questions you'd like us to discuss just now, please add them to the Q&A box and we'll talk about them in a moment. So before we do that though, I'd like to do a little bit of promotion for our premium services. One of the services we offer on our website is a speaking evaluation. This is where you can book a full mock speaking test with one of our speaking examiners. It could be Annelie, it could be myself, or another one of our team. And we'll go through a full speaking test with you. And then afterwards, we'll be able to give you feedback on your performance, what you did well, the areas where you can improve, specific mistakes that you might be making. And this can really help you to identify the areas that you need to work on and how you can improve your score. And we will give you an estimated band score as well, so you know what you can expect to achieve in the actual test. We offer a similar service for writing as well. So that's available on our website, IELTSonlinetest.com. I'll put a link to that in the chat in a moment. So, guys, now that is out of the way, I think we can take a look at some of your questions. So let's take a look. Annelie, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So let's see. We've got a question here from Fahad. Is asking, how can we develop our vocabulary skills? So any suggestions there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think reading a lot is a very, very good way of, extending your vocabulary. And then after that, making word banks, again, making mind maps to record your vocabulary. So, adjectives to describe natural places, adjectives to describe man-made places. But reading is really the best way. It's how we all do it as native speakers. You can also watch something. So exposure to native speaker English is the best way to get the vocabulary, but then, you also need to record it in a way that helps you to learn it. So not just lists, because you won't look at them again, but mind maps or some other visual way of recording it. And then you need to produce it. So then you need to actively use it to make sure that it's something that you're able to, to produce in the lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that. One other thing I might mention there is that often students focus on learning very rare individual words, but these are very uncommon and they're quite difficult to use appropriately in context. So I think a better way is learning how words combine in collocations and to use the words you already have, but learn which ones go together that let you express, yourself very clearly. So focusing on collocations is a good way to go as well. Can just see from Michaela there that she's going to Stockholm to be a tourist. It sounds like a great way to relax, Michaela. I think, I think that's a good question that a lot of students have, is how can I relax and try and not be nervous? And I think your suggestion there of going for a walk, getting outside, taking your time off the test. If your test is tomorrow, in reality, there's not so much that you can do to prepare. Your best bet is to try and relax, clear your mind, and, go in there with a good attitude. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any other tips there, Annelie, just for how to relax and, when you're sitting across from the examiner.
Yeah, I mean, breathing, controlling your breathing can help. Deliberately slowing down a bit. I think often when people are nervous, they tend to speed up, and that does then make it quite difficult for the examiner to hear or understand what you're saying. So just, you know, control your breathing, control your pace. And, you know, if you speak calmly and evenly, you will, you know, you will make yourself calmer by doing that. So I think controlling your breathing and the speed of how you're talking is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, yeah, going a little bit is better to go a bit more slowly than to go too fast, definitely. And that's a really good suggestion, Mustafa. Just understanding that the examiner is a human as well. Exactly. You know, all the examiners that I've met are just teachers, they're English teachers. They are, you know, working on their day off usually, you know, they're just normal people like everyone, so you know, don't be afraid of them. Okay.
And they want you to do well, you know, they do really want you. They have a very positive attitude, I think, so they're not trying to make it you know, a bad experience for you.
Yeah.
So you know, just think that they're there, sort of, they're rooting for you at the same time. Yeah,
exactly. Great. Let's see, a question here for from Priya is to say, how can we describe a place in detail? You know, what details can we give? For example, if we had to describe a beach, how could you describe, the beach?
Yeah, well, again, like we were saying, I think, you know, there's only so much you're going to get out of a description. So, you know, you want to spend more time on the background and the context. You know, why are you at this beach? Who are you with? What were you doing before you arrived at the beach? Would you go back to the beach? So, you know, description is only going to get you so far. So you really need to talk about the context and the background in order to get that 2 minutes. You know, and then, you know, what happened next? Just keep going. Remember, all they want is basically 2 minutes of your language that they can listen to without interacting with you, so that they get a really, you know, they're really able to judge your and assess your level. So the main thing is just to keep speaking.
Yeah, definitely. And that connects to a couple of other questions I can see, which is, can we make up stories? Is it okay just to invent a story if you're asked a question that you don't know anything about?
I mean, yeah, it's totally fine. The examiner is not going to know whether it's made up or not. I think it's harder to be detailed about something that you're making up than about something that actually happened to you. But there's certainly no reason not to, if you feel like you can keep going for the 2 minutes with invention. Sometimes that's harder than just actually trying to remember something from your past.
Yeah. I've had students before when we've been doing practice, you know, who have talked to me for 2 minutes about a restaurant that they went to and how much they enjoyed it. In fact, it was, I think, a teacher that they had when they were young and how much they inspired them. And I said, oh, you know, so what about this teacher? He was like, no, I just made all of that up. It was like, oh, wow, that's really impressive. But so, yeah, you never know, basically, whether it's real or not. And as you said, it doesn't matter. Yeah, great. Let's see, there was another related question of what happens if you just don't understand the question? And I think that's probably more likely in part 1 or part 3 rather than part 2. But what could you do if you just didn't catch or didn't understand what the examiner meant?
Yeah, because remember, in part 2, you're going to get the card, you're going to read it. So it's very unlikely that you would not understand what was on the card. If it's part 1 and you don't understand, you can just say, sorry, could you say that again? The only thing that the examiner can do is to repeat the question. They cannot change the form of the question in part 1. In part 3, they can, and they will already have changed the level of their English to suit the level of the candidate. So by that time, they'll have a good idea of your level, and they will structure the questions either more simply or in a more complicated way, depending on how you've been performing up to that point. And in part 3, they can, they'll express it in a different way. You can say, sorry, I didn't quite catch that, or I didn't quite understand. Nice way of doing it might be to say, oh, well, do you mean? So that doesn't exactly sound like you didn't understand. It just sounds like, you want to be sure about the question that you're asking. But just be aware that in part 1, they're not able to rephrase the question in any way. So, that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, we've got time for one more question. So I will just... This one looks good to me, and this is a problem that many students have, is how can I let the interviewer know when it's time for me to stop speaking, that I've finished my talk? Because many students often just keep talking, like almost like they're waiting for the examiner to stop them. What would your advice be there, Annelie?
I mean, if it's part 2, you should keep talking until the examiner stops you. That's the best thing to do. Part 3, if you say sort of 4 or 5 sentences, that's going to be plenty. If you try and give them a complete answer rather than keeping talking. So, your opinion, the reason why you think that, and then an example, something like that. Yeah. So, so that it's complete, but you don't have to keep speaking, and you just stop, and then the examiner will ask you the next question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like to sort of summarize the answer as well. Just say, so basically, or, so at the end of the day, just give a brief summary of your main point, and then stop, and that tells the examiner that you're ready to move on. So guys, that is about us for this lesson. So I'd just like to say thank you very much, Annelie, for presenting today. It's been really great. And thank you everyone for joining us for the lesson. I can see many of you have your tests coming up imminently. So best of luck to you for the next couple of days.
Good luck, Mustafa. You're going to Sheffield. So good luck with that. Good luck, Michaela. And anyone else who's got your test. Yeah. Best of luck to you.
Yeah. Best of luck with your studies, guys. If you do have other questions you'd like to ask us that we didn't get around to today, you can add them to our YouTube channel as comments. We'll check them and we'll get back to you and give you an answer for them. If you can check out our Facebook as well, if you can give us a like or a share, a subscribe there, that would be great. It helps us to keep offering these webinars for free. So that would be much appreciated. So big spasibo, Azamat. Thank you very much. And
spasibo, dankeschön.
Great to see you guys, and we hope to see you again for another webinar soon. Okay, so thank you, and thanks again, Annelie. Cheers.
Okay, cheers. Bye. Tschüss. Bye. Bye, guys.